Program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello everyone and good afternoon. Welcome to the sunset safari. Wow, I am getting rusty, aren't I? 2 weeks of leave and I'm so glad to be back with you all. I truly am, and to be back in the bush, so I miss it a lot. But we have a lot planned today. We're going to be strolling around, having a look at any exciting things, some small stuff, some big stuff, and hopefully I'll be looking for Tingana too, because he did cross north into Buffelshoek. So I'm going to do that sort of boundary area and have a look for him. And if I didn't tell you, my name is Trishala and I've got Seb on camera with me today. And we had a really nice little bunch of antelope here, and they are Impala. Now remember, we are completely live and interactive, so if you would like to ask us any questions at all, use that hashtag Safari Live or the YouTube chat stream, and I will happily answer all your questions to the best of our ability. Now, what are we actually looking at? We're looking at a group of Impala, and if you would notice, there's only one male. Now, where did you go, mister? There you are. And that is, of course, because we are in the rutting season, and this male has collected these females into his territory. There he goes, chewing away. It's a nice little area, so he'll chase out any males that come along, and you'll hear him go crazy. It's actually quite funny. And I think that's actually what he's looking at now. So he'll look out, constantly looking out for any other males that may want to come and displace him from his territory. And he'll be all around defecating and making sure that everybody knows that this is his spot. Thank you, everyone. I'm very happy to have a warm welcome back. I feel like I've got to welcome you back to Trishala as well. It feels like 2 weeks had been very long. And I missed it very much. Oh, some cleaning of the hooves as well. So I like to stop at Impala. It's always really nice. They're they're very beautiful and sleek. And I find that especially, that's why I like to stop for them. But also in the rutting season, they can be so entertaining. And this male, I was just waiting for him to... Can you see how he's fixated on something? Now, I was hoping that he would start to do a little display for us, but it seems that he is more focused on chewing away. He almost looks like he's daydreaming. You know when you're eating sometimes and you daydream and your mouth is just continually moving, but you're just staring off into space? I feel like that's what he's going through right now. Space chewing of cud. Anyway, let us move on. And I'm going to make my way sort of west and then up, north. Oh, Chris, you say we need a quiz today? I've got some interesting questions. Let's see how we go. Yes, I think that would be very nice to have a bit of a quiz. Just a few questions. Should I even quiz the others? I think so. I think that would be nice. So, like I said, the west of Djuma at the moment. Djuma, of course, as we all know, unless you're a new viewer, if you are, welcome. But we are going to be bumbling around Djuma and looking for the best animals that we can, which are all of them, pretty much. Anyway, while I carry on towards the west and then up to the north, let me send you over to Rusty, who's on bushwalk.
A very good afternoon and welcome back. We're back on our afternoon safari walk. And it's myself, Rusty here, and Jean-Jay on camera, and Herbie, our protector. He's just going ahead now to see what is about. So we are looking for the same as yesterday, the spotted cats. And we did have a nice surprise as we're coming back into camp. We bumped into the legendary Tingana, the Duke, and he was very impressive. It would have been better to find him on foot, but on the car it was just the same. And it was quite a nice surprise at the end of the day. So I'm sure all of you got to see him who were watching last night with Orly, who showed you him like right next to the road, presenting himself quite beautifully. So we are trying to see. We know he headed out the area this morning, last night, and we're hoping for him to come back in, and we might intercept him, but it depends on if we can find tracks or sign of him around here. But right now we're heading towards one of the pans, and this is quite you can see here is a track of an elephant. It's not really clear, but this elephant young bull came down here, looks like earlier on this morning, because there is other tracks of Impala going over it, but coming back that way. So he's going down to the pan, but carrying on. If we hopefully find some fresh dung, we might be able to see how old it is. Right now we think it's a few hours old, so it's very difficult for us to keep up with an elephant that's that far ahead. So that's the plan for now. And if we do find any other tracks, we're not far from camp, and we know Tundi is around, we know Kalamba might be around. They seem to like to hang around these areas. Sorry, I did have a question coming through. Volker dog, is that correct? Kind of like heard a name coming through. Sorry, I do apologize if I'm mispronouncing that completely. You're asking Volker dog, you're asking if Tundi or Kalamba has been seen around recently. Not that we know of. I have not seen Tundi for a while. There has not been updates of her since, when was it, 2 days ago, 3 days ago? And the same with Kalamba. We're not too sure where they are, but at this time of season, we have the rutting Impala, which are easy pickings for these amazing cats. So now they're not moving around that much. It's very easy picking, so with capturing these Impala one by one, they don't have to try very hard, cover much distance. So I think they're tied up with food right now, somewhere close by. I think the last sighting of Tundi was, I believe, on the dam cam, and she was seen like 3 times in one night coming past the dam cam. So she is around here somewhere. We just have to find her, and we think she might be on an Impala kill. It'll be the obvious choice right now, because there's very little movement of her right now. So while we are on the walk, let's go look over to what the other guys are getting up to.
Good afternoon, welcome to Safari Live. You're here with me with Matt Dyson. Full name Matthew, but that's only if I'm in trouble, so keep it with Matt, nice and simple. I'm going to be with you for the next 10 days here at Djuma, just working on a bit of a freelance basis, just to get a feel for what it's like to be in front of the camera. And in front of us here we have a nice, what we call a dazzle of zebra. You can see there, nice big female walking over into the bush, and you still have one on the road there, having a bit of a graze. So obviously your zebra being a grazer, bulk grazer in fact, they don't touch any other foliage, and quite a gassy digestive system there. So you find that that fat tummy that you see on the zebra has got to do with that gassy digestion, being a hindgut fermenter. And so you never really see a skinny zebra as far as the belly is concerned. All right. And it's a pity that the other ones moved off into the bush there, because we had them sort of standing in the road. I think I counted about 4 or 5 individuals. And we have, as far as their stripe patterning goes, very dazzling as an effect. So collective noun known as a dazzle of zebra, which is quite a nice one. Nice one for your trivia. As you go along. And sort of on the note of collective nouns, I think one of the good ones is what do you call a parliament? Oh, that was I gave it away there. I was going to say it was a parliament of baboons, but I thought a bit of slip of the tongue there. Have to think of another one. So we're going to go with what about a what of mongoose? And if you have the answer, you can send it through via Twitter, #Safari Live with us, or on the YouTube channel through the feed stream there. So I'll let you think on that one for a bit, and then I'll come back to it, just while that zebra is having a nice feed in the dry grass. So obviously being winter everything is very, very, very green. No, unfortunately I'm not related to Scott Dyson. I don't actually even know a Scott, so that, but you know, it's a common surname coming from Britain, eh? So grandfather was from the UK, and you never know who you might be related to. But as far as Scott goes, no, I don't think I have any relation there. Yeah, a nice big female again walking down the road here. So coming back to that question about the mongoose, collective noun known as a business, eh? Ladybird, well done, 10 out of 10, eh? I think got to give you a prize. I'll send it to you via DHL or something like that. Yeah, that was very well answered. Just going to go a little forward here. Let's see if the other zebras are down in the drainage. And there's me, see my face, how are we doing? Well, I think, yeah, let's go down. We're going to go down the back here. Oh, there's a baby. I see a baby. Let's just see, go down here real quick. I don't know if you guys saw that baby there. There he is, like a little one. That's always brilliant, eh, to see the youngsters. There we go. Hello. So that little guy there, super cute, eh? You notice appearing quite horse-like in stature, so long legs in comparison to the body. And obviously, as they grow older, they become more pony-like, like the adults. But notice the belly line is very similar heights there to the mother, so that's to help with confusing the predators. Obviously, having the same belly line, then if lions are having a look, then you know, they kind of blend together quite nicely. So a nice little way for, well, hopefully for the baby to stay safe, because obviously zebra being a primary target for your lions, you know, they one of the many that lions will choose for. But obviously lions, they like the you know, the bigger animals. Let's go forward. Because, you know, Impala, yeah, they do hit Impala here and there, but, you know, a bit small for a pride of lions, eh? We'll just see if they'll come out again for us here. That's a very interesting question, brother. So it's actually quite an interesting one. There's been some studies done that the stripe patterning, as far as the black and the white stripes, that it actually creates its own microclimate in terms of the darker obviously absorbing more heat and then the white reflecting. So that, in theory, will move the air around the stripe patterning. So that is the theory behind the microclimate on the zebra. So they can stand in the sun and technically stay relatively cool. And us crossing the road there. A little bit nervous though, having a look at us there. Not too sure. Obviously the animals out here are quite habituated. They're like, for the most part, they're like, they don't mind the vehicles too much. But let me tell you, I got chased by a elephant the one day, and she really thought she was going to get me, 400 or 500 meters down the road. But it was in a reserve north of here. The elephants weren't so relaxed with the vehicles. So you always got to know how the elephants sort of react, depending on what area and which game reserve you're driving on. She's just giving us a nice little look there. Obviously wagging that tail just to get keep the flies away, and you'll get your odd zebra without a tail, and that's got to do with your lions, or hyenas. Sometimes as well, though, your parasites like your ticks, they can cause a bit of a problem there, and they'll land up, you know, feeding sort of around the area, almost like ring marking the tail, and then that can cause circulation issues, and then obviously the tail can actually fall off. So, which is not ideal if you're a zebra trying to get rid of the flies, much like this girl in front of us here. It's a beautiful stripe patterning though. You'll notice the shadow stripes. So your shadow stripes, in terms of your zebra, you know, very different to that of the Cape Mountain you get down in Cape Town. So in South Africa we only get two, but up here we only get this one. We call it the Plains or Birchall zebra is the old name. And so with that nice shadow stripe, that's probably your most prominent identifying feature there. It's also a little bit smaller than your Cape Mountain. Cape Mountain is slightly bigger. But yeah, you're going to have to go climb Table Mountain to go and have a look for your Cape Mountain down there. Beautiful though, Cape Town, if you've never been. And that's where South Africa is fantastic. We've got the bush, and within a 2-hour flight, you've got the ocean. You know, in Cape Town in particular, great wine and food as well. So definitely worth a look for a holiday. I know that I definitely enjoy living in this beautiful country. I mean, look at the weather today, fantastic, eh? Right, let's go a little bit forward here. Yeah, I'm going to catch a suntan, yeah? I forgot to put sunblock on the nose, eh? Okay, so we're going to move to Rust. Leopard track that hopefully is from one of our prominent cats, and maybe we can find him.
This is right here. We have some good news, but this is a few hours old. We know it's from this morning, and the alarm calls of the Impala can be heard from quite a distance away. So this is Tingana, and he came through here probably about 4, 5, 6 o'clock this morning, but he crossed over our boundary, so we're hoping for him to come back. And you could see this little conical shaped disturbance here is from an antlion, and it's often when they get disturbed by a track, you can almost tell how old the leopard is, but it's not often these antlions are active as much during the day as they are during the night. So this leopard crossed over here early hours of this morning. Well, like I said, we are hoping for him to come back in this direction, but we're not. We're just going to hold our fingers crossed and see if it happens. We're just going to see if any other leopard are around here, but Tingana is one of the tricky ones to see on foot. There is a chance of finding him, but actually seeing him is very slim, but that's the reward we get. If we track it, it takes a few hours sometimes, but when we eventually do, it's that much more rewarding. Whether he stays around is another story. So we are more interested in trying to find Tandi or the Hukamori, and apparently both of them were heard calling this morning, so it might be a territorial standoff. We know Tingana is getting to an age where Hukamori might be pushing him out of his territory, but whether Tingana is going to stand up for that for much longer, we don't know. We'll know, I'm sure, in a few months if he's going to stand up to the challenge, because he is, almost 6 years older than Hukamori. So that's a big age difference for leopards. So I don't see him actually holding up a fight or winning a fight with the hook. But, yeah. It's going to be quite interesting to find leopard. Sorry. I had a question coming through. I'm really getting distracted by the names coming through. I do apologize about that. There was a question coming through about what about finding tracks of lion? Fact, I believe your name is. You're asking about finding lion tracks. That is just by chance as well. If we know the lions are in the area, then that's great. Then we can follow up the tracks. Sometimes that's all we see is tracks. And if they are coming through this morning or last night, then we can pick up the tracks and try follow them. But in the afternoons like this, all the lions have already settled up. Most of the lions have settled up for the day. So with the heat as it is now, most of them are parked off. It's only later in the evening where they start moving around. So any tracks we find now that are very fresh, then we're definitely going to be following them. But if they're a few hours old, we know they've covered some distance. Okay, well, while we keep looking, let's go over to Trusala and see what her afternoon is looking like.
Good luck, Rusty. I am going to help a little bit. I am driving kind of northern boundary at the moment, and I'm making my way up to the Buffelshoek Dam. Interesting to see how it looks, especially after not seeing it for quite a while, and see what that water level looks like. So that would be really interesting. I've also got the drone with me. and of course Mr. Drone Pilot. So there she is, lovely Mrs. Drone. So we might put her up in the air a little later on when it's slightly cooler, because it is quite warm at the moment. It's 29 degrees Celsius, about 84 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to be waiting for it to cool down a little bit, then we'll put her up into the air and we can hopefully find some cats. Now, we spoke about maybe a quiz, and I have a question. Which is the oldest organism that is currently alive on Earth? Now, I will take an answer that is just a description. Like if you want to say it's a fungus or it's a tree or it's a bacteria or something like that, I will take that. But remember, hashtag Safari Live, and let me know what you think the oldest organism on the planet is. Kirsten said something to me, and then I think I'm pretty sure she didn't say what I think. She says she thinks it's a platypus. At first I thought she said it's Casper, as in Casper the ghost. No, so Kirsten, the platypus is incorrect. Good luck next time. It is also the heaviest organism on Earth. P. Hart, you say lichen. I like that you're all kind of on the right track. You're not thinking about big animals. You're thinking the smaller things, that is what we want to do. But it is not lichen. It is a very specific thing. This particular organism. Oh, what was that one? James Henry. What did he say? Oh, James Henry. Oh, I thought the answer was from him. You think it's James Henry? Quite possibly. You know, James Henry is a bit of an enigma and a sort of a legend. So we're not sure for how long he's existed. We're not sure if Hercules actually existed or it was James Henry in the first place. I think he could pull off Greek god. But no, it is not James Henry, though I love that answer. So this, when I say organism or one organism, it is genetically, what was the word I was going to look for and then it escaped me? Ooh, yes, you are on the right track. You're all saying trees, and you are on the right track, but there is a specific collection of trees that are genetically all the same. And that means, of course, that they are the same organism. And I can give you a hint. It is in America. It is in Utah, to be specific. So like I said, it's the oldest. Is that a pangolin? I wasn't sure. Pangolin? No. Remember, we're talking age, not in terms of evolutionary time. Oh, a pine tree. Again, on the same track, but I'm looking for a specific collection because this particular collection is 80,000 years old. 80,000 years. Just imagine that. I'm sure there's a lot of people, and if you Google it, we'll get the answer. Nikki and Kathy, you say redwood trees? No, but trees are the right thing. Oh, I'm sorry. It's just as if, gremlins want to come back and get me as soon as I'm back from leave. Bloody gremlins. But I'm very sorry for that if it's all broken up and I'm sort of without any sound coming out. Promise I am trying to say something intelligent. Gremlins are just trying to make me look bad. So, what do we think? Christine, you say conifer trees? Can I tell you? Can I curse? Can I tell them yet? Because I thought it was absolutely fascinating. And the whole story about the way that they've developed and grown. Bristlecone? Bristlecone is a great answer, but remember, I'm not looking for a... It's a collection of a particular tree. I don't know how to describe this. And it has a name. This collection has a name. It's sort of like a... Ooh, lots of people are saying aspen. That is a great description, but I will give it to you. So it is a type of aspen, and it's called Pando. And Pando is in Utah, and it's about 80,000 years old. And the reason it's that old, and it's survived for that long, because remember, this is genetically identical. So that specific root system has been alive for 80,000 years, which is fantastic. I can't imagine how that could be. But then I read a little bit about it, and what had happened is, because this root system was so old, and it was obviously underground, it had been so deep underground that anytime there was an environmental change that would normally change or disrupt the growth of these trees or kill them, it would never actually be able to reach the roots. I'm talking about fires and other sorts of things. So that root continuously grew, and each time there's a fire and it wiped out the top, the root was still alive. So there you go, Pando in Utah. It's also the heaviest organism. It's something like 6,000 tons. I think so. Ooh, I have it written down there. Ah, Joseph, you legend. Legend, got it right. You guys. I also really like that you all thought along similar lines, which tells me that you're thinking really nicely, really about.
I absolutely love arachnids, and it's we are in the middle of winter, or going into the middle of winter, and it's not often that these, I don't think they're going to be around for much longer. But what we have here is a golden orb spider, and judging from the size of it, it is probably a bit smaller than my hand. I can't actually get up there because it's quite higher up in the trees, and that is a typical female size. Males are half the size. They're like, you're talking about my hand's that big. Female's about that size, and the male is literally about way less than a quarter size of her. And they're normally brown and inconspicuous on the web. And I can't actually see a male. So it's normally shortly after mating, she'll lay an egg case, and then she goes on, passes on. But I can't actually see. It's the same. We found one yesterday on the walk on the other side of the reserve, and I was quite surprised. She was still very small compared to this one. This one's reached full size, and she doesn't have as many dewdrop spiders on her web as well that are stealing her food or are trying to capture the little ones that she can't actually feel. But then we had a live kill earlier with her, before we came live, and she grabbed a fly. Whether that fly was brought in by us because we are starting to sweat a little, and they are either following us, and maybe it just flew past me straight into the web. But she ran in there and grabbed it, and I thought she was going to like store it away in the middle of the web there and eat it later. But she tucked into it straight away, so there's actually not much left. I think she might, the wings and a few other body parts might be chucked away, but all the insides and the edible parts will be ingested. I can't actually make out what she's doing now. I think it's nice when you have the zoom. Donut, you're saying this is amazing. It is. Oh well, if I actually use my binoculars, you have a better visual than I do with the zoom on the camera, where you can see the little... I wonder if that is the male. Can you see the male there, Yonder? I think that is the male on the other side of her. And I think he's getting a bit hungry, because sometimes he comes and feeds off the same kill she eats, or the leftovers. He doesn't eat as much as she does. It is pretty amazing. Now, it's hard to say because there is a bit of sun coming through the trees onto the web, but the reason why they get the name the golden orb spider is because the orb, the actual web, is a golden color, especially when the sun catches it at the right angle. It's a stunning, stunning web. But they have been reduced in numbers quite drastically throughout the dry season. We've had, if I go back 4 or 5 years ago, where I used to work, they were everywhere. Now, if you do not like spiders, and a lot of my friends don't, a lot of my clients didn't, we had clients climbing off the cars, off the horses, because these webs were everywhere. I could see it coming and I duck and somebody else behind me gets it in their face. But as soon as you touch the web, we don't mean to go through the webs, but when these webs are literally covering whole roads and literally web after web after web, it becomes very difficult. You have to drive, and some vehicles end up sticking sticks in the bumpers, in the front of the vehicles, and driving just to capture the web before it goes over everyone in the back seat. It is, for some people it's funny, for some absolutely not funny at all. But when you do end up walking into it, or driving into it, and as soon as you touch the web, and they know it's not going to work out, they just drop out the web very quickly, and it's often onto your lap or onto the person who is riding behind me, and it doesn't go down very well for the person or the spider. But they are harmless. I'm sure it can inflict a bite, but it does not have any problem to humans. Seanak, you're asking what's the most unusual thing or creature I've seen a spider catch. I would say, what's the most unusual? Most of them are just insects. Years ago on the farm, growing up as kids, we also had quite a heavy rainy season, so these spiders were everywhere. There was a lot of insects, so their numbers multiplied for a couple of years. And we had this one alleyway at the back of the garden where the webs were, it was so thick you couldn't actually see through most of it. And a little sunbird got caught up in there. But I think it just got tangled up in the web. I don't remember quite see if the spiders actually did anything with it. I think it just died in there because it got trapped. Now the sunbird is about that size. So when this web is extremely strong. When we get it on you, it's sticky, and I don't like it on my face. It just feels weird. But when these birds get trapped in it, and they're not strong, they're not big birds. So when they get wrapped up in so much web, they are trapped there. So I don't know if the spiders actually did anything with it, because mostly they go after the smaller insects. But that's very... otherwise, I haven't seen many other things that are of interest. It's mostly just insects, grasshoppers, praying mantises, flies, beetles. So yeah, the beetles are a big problem. You know the dung beetles, I'm sure you've seen them over the rains. When they're flying around in the summer period and these spiders have built their webs, these dung beetles just fly through. They're like putting a cannonball through these webs, so they're not the biggest fan of them. Okay, well, we're going to leave this beautiful girl alone and see if she can have fun with that male. Let's go over to, Trashala, I think it was. Sorry, got distracted. But let's go see what the other guys are getting up to.
Alright, so we've now made our way to Chitwa, and we're going to go check the Waterhole. It's been a hot day. We have this potential for maybe some elephant, some buffalo, your thick skins. Obviously being quite a hot day, they might make their way to the water. So we're going to slowly take a bumble that way. Sort of in the meantime, we'll see what other sort of creatures we can sort of find. You never know. Sabuya, one of the female leopards, she hangs around here. The last time I saw her was on a termite mound. It's just behind us there. Okay, so what I was doing before Safari Live, I was full-time guiding, but I did a BCom first, funny that. So I switched from business to the bush. It's better than corporate life, let me tell you. You'll never see me trying to sell cars or sit behind a desk doing sales. It's not going to happen. So welcome to my office, you know what I'm saying? Definitely, job satisfaction 10 out of 10. So basically, yeah, studied and then got involved in guiding purely by chance. I did a ranger course purely to just enjoy being out in the bush for 3 months, and then with an extended trails component, so we can then walk with big game as well. And then got a job offer, which was unexpected, shortly after completing that course. And then I suppose the rest is real history, eh? So it's been a good time. I've been in the Sabi Sands now, I suppose combined about 2.5 years or so, with another 1.5 years in another reserve north of here. But like I say, once you do this, very difficult to actually go back to doing anything else in the city. I did give it a try briefly, and yeah, it didn't really fit me too well. I quite like my car keys as well. I'm not the biggest fan of Nike and Adidas and fluorescent clothing, so and I think each to their own, but this is me right here. And so a pleasure to be out with the Safari Live team. And like I said, first drive for me this afternoon, and at the end of the day, a little bit different being in front of the camera, but quite enjoying it, if I'm honest. Instead of 6 people, I got, I think, I don't know, up to 2,000-3,000 people I'm talking to, so it's fantastic. A nice tree up ahead, yeah, we call this a torchwood. I don't know if you folks know about a torchwood. See this nice fluted, noose fluted trunk, and all right, so I'm pausing that one and relay to Vicky there quickly. My favorite animal has to be a leopard, eh? Yeah, this hands down, unfortunately a leopard won't get up into this tree. It's not ideal for them, but definitely leopard. And but this torchwood, you'll see a beautiful fluted trunk, and so very easy to identify. You don't see them all too often out in the bush. They're sort of scattered. And, the name torchwood referring to the fact that you can actually take the seed and crush out the oil and then use that to ignite flammable oil, which traditionally used on for better word, torch. So sort of back in before solar and things like that. And it's also known as a greenthorn, but I prefer the name torchwood. Definitely more flamboyant, eh? So unfortunately I've never tried it, so this is stuff you read about. But let's carry on driving and see if we can find my favorite creature, which is the leopard. I can sit and photograph those cats all day, no problem. Sometimes people get a bit annoyed because we land up spending 2-3 hours with a cat, but for me that's winning, eh? Oh, I want to stall it. You stall the safari vehicle, you got to buy some beers for the lads, eh? So definitely got to keep my foot on the throttle. Otherwise, you're going to land up having to, buy a case later, which is not ideal. And I like beer, by the way. It's my preferred. Minaloo, yes, absolutely. So I'll have to say it's Shidulu, which is in the western sector. You possibly have heard of her. And, as the name suggests, Shangan Shidulu means termite mound. So her preferred sort of way of hunting, as well as, in scanning and things like that, she'll climb up on top of termite mounds. So I got a wonderful photo of her on top of a termite mound with the safari vehicle right in front. And it was, for lack of a better shot for marketing there. So Shidulu definitely, just from her behavioral point of view, great cat to follow, and she's also very relaxed, eh? So sometimes you'll find leopards that are quite shy, not where you'll be bumbling along and through the little white.
I'm so sorry about that, guys. It seems that the gremlins are all over the place. But luckily, I have something exciting to show you. It actually looks very, very sad. It is, of course, Snorkel Sarah and Scuba Steve. And they seem to be sort of in a pan of sludge at the moment, which is quite sad. Now, this is Buffelshoek watering hole. And we've seen it over the many months that we've been coming here. And look at that water level. That little patch that they're sitting in, is just horrible. It's thick and murky, and Scuba, you look dry. Your skin looks so dry. Oh man, look at that. Oh, I wish he would just submerge so he could get some moisture on his skin. Now we know that water is the #1 factor when it comes to hippo survival. Because of the sensitivity of their skin, they just can't do if there's no water to keep them nice and moist. Oh man, does he look sad? Oh man, I don't know why, but I feel like he looks sad. Everyone, you guys are feeling bad for the hippos, so am I. This is very, very sad. Hello, Lapwing. Decide to stroll in. You also want to be on camera, do you? Yes. Turn towards us as if to say, yes, I do. I do. Oh man, Scuba. So we were speaking about the skin. Now the skin is really, really thick. An exact measurement I don't have for you, but I remember watching a dissection of a hippo online, and the skin was very thick. Because obviously there's these layers of fat. And sometimes if it gets really dry, and I thought there was a little scar on his body. Where is it? There it is, there. So this scar, it may be a result of the skin getting so dry that it actually cracks, which is what can happen when they are very dry, which is horrible, really. But of course, they do have a sort of built-in sunscreen that assists with this, which is also an antiseptic. 2 types of acid, hipposudoric acid and hipposudoric acid. And that's what you see, those little black reddish spots when they're out of the water. You see it quite often. Linda, you would like to know, where will they go once it gets even worse than this? I'm not sure. I mean, they can travel really, really long distances to find water. There was one that I can recall in St. Lucia area, which is in KZN, where I'm from. A hippo had walked, I think, something like 1,800 kilometers to find new water, or a new source of water to live in. So they can travel a long way in order to find the perfect sort of pan for themselves. And remember, Chitwa is not far away. We've got other little watering holes around as well. But a lot of them will be drying up now, and a lot of the hippos have already secured those areas. So Scuba has to go in there. He'll now have to fight for a place. Oh, look at those eyes. Looks very whale-like. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see where they go. It's also interesting that they keep in that patch when the patch closer down here is also quite deep, I suppose. It looks deep. Henry, you'd like to know, when do hippos sleep? Well, if we have a look at Scuba's face right now. There you go, sleeping. So what they'll do is in the day, they spend a lot of their time just kind of wallowing in the mud and the water, and that's when they'll catch their snooze. And then in the evenings, they step out of the water and they go around and they begin to eat all the grass nearby, which is also a bit of a problem at the moment because it is getting very, very dry and brown. He looks like he's sleeping right now, aren't you, Scuba? I suppose what else can you do when your home is now just mud? So we always read in our textbooks that hippos need at least 1.5 meters of water. to be able to basically live in that watering hole. But I don't think that's 1.5 meters of water there. I don't think so. I would think it's less than that. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they are actually standing. Now I have another visitor up in front of me. Can you see him walking towards me here? Where'd you go? Oh, there you are. So this is Mr. Hornbill. I think this is... It is. It's Winston Churchbull. Where did you go, Winston? Oh, no. He is a very, very curious young man. But he's... Oh, excuse me. It's Winston Churchbull. What a name. But he is... he's flown off. Anyway, let's have another last look here at these guys in their sadness. Well, you know what? I'm actually really glad to see that they are at least very much alive. And as far as they're concerned, this is enough for them. Yes. As long as they have each other. I think that's what he just said to her. As long as we have each other, babe, we can live in a box. Shami, you'd like to know if the male's eyes are darker or lighter. I think what you're asking about is the skin around the eyes. Is that what you're asking about? Because normally, like I say again, textbooks, they'll tell you that that skin around the eyes, this pinkish skin that you get here, is usually indicates a female. But we do think that this is Scuba Steve, the one with the lighter colors around. So sometimes you can't really tell. You can't say that this one is lighter and this one is female and this one is darker, so it must be male. Because if you look at the size of their snouts, you'll see that Scuba's snout is much broader and wider, and Snorkel Sarah's snout is smaller and narrower. So sometimes it's not easy to pick out sexes based on the color around the eyes. And of course, if you're talking about the actual color of the eye, you don't get much difference at all. They'll both have beautiful brown eyes. Now look at the size of that head. That is a big head. You compare that to behind him, which we think is the female, that's smaller. Shame. They do look a bit... Yeah, they don't look great. They don't look happy. I just really want him to submerge so he can, that dry patch on his back can just be moist and actually look better. Now remember when Jamie was with them? No, one nostril was blocked, I think on Scuba Steve. I didn't actually get to see if both nostrils let out water there just now when he huffed. Oh, but look at all this sludge that's on her. Shame. Well, I really hope that they find a nice little area to get to before it becomes too dire here. Shame. Oh well. We wish them all the best, don't we? And all the luck in finding a new watering hole. But I'm going to move on now. Now I've checked the north and I've checked for tracks and I haven't found anything. So I'm moving down now. In the meantime, let me go and send you over to Rusty on Bushwalk, who seems to be walking around with those very long legs.
It's getting quite dire with the amount of water, how these dams are drying up so quickly. And I'm sure the hippos will make a plan B, C, D. I know just the territorial bulls might have an issue when they get too close to each other. But right now, there looks like there's 3 or 4 pods in Chitwa Dam that are quite isolated. But there's enough water to do that. But once it gets shrinking less and less, it might become quite a problem. But it does increase some activity around the dam as it gets drier and drier. Now, we had some exciting news as we were just after the spider. There we heard alarm calls from both the squirrel and from Impala, so that is always go ahead. Okay, if we just hear squirrel, sometimes it's like a false alarm. We don't really pay too much attention. But then when an impala starts snorting, and it wasn't a rutting sound, which we sometimes mistake now, it is an alarm call. Now, it is. We are very close to the camp, so we are thinking it's either Tundi or Tlalamba. We don't think it's any of the territorial males, but who knows? We're not too sure. Sometimes they do move through the heat of the day. They don't always park up. So we just have to be very quiet and move very slowly because we do make a lot of noise walking through here. It is very difficult. Everything is crisp and dry and very, very, it just breaks at the slightest touch. So now we're just trying to decide where we want to go. There is a drainage line that runs down here towards one of the dams down near the dam camp. And the impala sounded like they took off that way, and then we think the tracks are coming down. So until we find that, it's going to be touch and go where we go. So while we listen out and look around for tracks, let's go over to Matt and see how his drive is getting along.
Alright, so if you have a look here, something quite fresh and quite prominent in the soil, which you don't really see all that often. So I thought we'd just stop and have a look at it. So if you have a look straight down here, okay, you'll notice that there's sort of like bumps in the ground, and it's been heavily compressed as well. So I can't hear you guys at the moment if you ask me any questions, but I'm sure the team will relay them when I get back in. But what we have here is a zebra busy dust rolling and dust bathing. All right, so they do that to just help, get rid of the parasites and things like that, much like how birds will also dust bathe, to try to get rid of the sort of parasites and things like that. And the ridge lines that you see in the ground here are quite nice. As the zebra's been rolling over, I reckon the mane, specifically maybe on the neck, has just been brushing it. And as it sort of jumped up to get back onto its feet, and I know it's zebra, by the way, because there's a track right here on my left side, so you'll see here a nice little zebra track. So nice easy one for me to actually identify. I think if I just had that on the ground, I'd have to think about it for a little bit, but if you got the track here, then you can definitely see it's your zebra. All right, so nice illustration, very fresh, and I think that if you were tracking zebra, you'd be on the numbers here. So you'll see the zebra very, very clean as far as the spoor is concerned, very, very sharp as far as the edges go. And obviously this it's a prominent airstrip, so you get a lot of traffic up and down very close to the Chitwa. So if you've got a private jet, you can land it here, as long as it has dirt strip capabilities, of course. Otherwise, you got to look at something like a caravan. But my point being is that it's a busy airstrip, so anything that you get here on top of the vehicle tracks is obviously going to be very, very fresh. Last point on the track though, if you have a look at the back, you'll see here, obviously horse-like, but the difference being you have the frog, okay, just that nice little angular frog that we call for the zebra track. All right, so nice, easy one to identify. Let me plug back in, and then we're going to take a drive around to the dam wall real quick. Now you guys can actually see me properly, so hello everybody. Oopsie daisy, I don't fit in this truck. Okay. And we can take a nice little bumble around to the airstrip. You just got to get wired back in. All right, there we go. Randall, so you got to look at a couple things. Number one, the easiest thing to look for is your nocturnal activity, because if it's let's say the next morning and you have nocturnal tracks anywhere over of the diurnal species, you know it's from the day before. So something like your civet or hyena as such. But then also just the general clarity of the track, very sharp edges, okay, for a fresh track. Obviously with the wind and so forth, the track will start to weather and age, so you get like this rounded edge effect. And then obviously climatic conditions, easy one is if it's rained the night before, well, you bang on the money, then they're going to be fresh. It wipes the slate clean. So we had a situation where we had a pride of lions come through the camp the one evening, and the next morning we had all the tracks coming straight past reception, and it rained at about 3 o'clock in the morning, so we knew that, okay, no doubt that this entire pride had come through. And sure enough, we left the lodge, and then about literally 200 meters to the eastern side of the lodge we found the pride. But the funny thing was, well, not really funny, the scary thing rather, was that the lodge manager at the time got up to switch on the power again. So she was walking around in the dark and had no idea that the lion pride was actually moving through the camp. But luckily, they never actually met. So it was quite nice to tell her the next morning and say, you were actually quite lucky that you weren't like a midnight snack, eh? All right. Oh, don't want to squash the mongoose. Watch out. I don't know if you guys saw that. I don't know if you'll get him. Yeah, scampering off into the bush. Maybe you'll get him. No. It's tough here with this thick grass here. Talking about the business of mongoose from earlier. And, that entire business just crossed in front of us here. And so, unfortunately, off into the long grass. Luckily, I didn't squash one. I would have felt pretty bad. So, obviously, being a guide, you quite enjoy, looking after animals rather than, hurting them or killing them and such. So I always say, shoot with the camera, kill nothing but time, and leave nothing but footprints. It's always a good way to go about things. It's just my sort of personal opinion. Well, we're going to go this way. And also, all right, so we got Tashara. She's got a nice little bird to talk about for us. Very pretty little bird, so we'll move over to her real quick.
We do. This bird's name is Trishala. It is a magpie shrike, and it's sitting very, very nicely for us. I always have this fear that when we drive, we pass it, and then we reverse, because, I've seen it, then it flies away. So this one's been very, very good to us. Haven't you? So recently, I read a little bit about the females and the males of these magpie shrikes, and the male's body is almost entirely black, whereas the females have sort of creamy white flanks, and I'm sure you would have seen that in others, because I remember seeing lots of magpie shrikes that had a lot more white in it than this one does. So I would think that this is a male. Hello, mister. How pretty, just perched there for us, especially with the background of the drying leaves as winter comes. Very, very pretty. Now, of course, lots of the migratory birds will be moving and left already, actually. And this guy is a resident. So you are sitting very pretty. Of course, they might move around in the area, but they're generally sedentary and they'll stick around. Like most mammals, of course, they will move if there's an issue, if there's fire or drought or a lack of resources. But other than that, he's staying pretty much put. Now, he is by himself. Usually they are in groups. But sometimes you get sort of one that'll rally the group together. So I wonder if that's what he's trying to do. But clearly, it looks a bit like he's trying to keep a low profile. Very cute. Oh. Birds are lovely. They're sort of like a treasure hunt, and each time you find a new one. And of course they are hard, they're difficult, because there's so many of them, so many variations of them. And then you get juveniles and, all these different things. Oh, are you going to fly? So it can be hard, to identify a specific sex of the bird, age of the bird, and things like that. But the more you get into it, it just becomes wonderful. And Oh, there you go. Bye-bye. It becomes sort of a treasure hunt, which is really nice because every single time you sort of, oh, it's a new one, and it sticks in your head, and I love it. I really do. It's very cool. Well, thank you, Mr. Magpie Shrike. Oh, you know, one of my favorite animals here is, of course, the monitor lizards. I love the bushveld monitor lizard and, of course, the Nile monitor lizard. So it seems that Matt has got one with him, and I'm very jealous. So let's go over to him so he can show it to you.
So yeah, we're sitting with a nice float of hippos, if you don't know what they're called, from a collective sense. So what you'll notice, I do like my collective nouns, eh? So quite an interesting one about being a float of hippos, because yes, they technically can float, and on that note, they can actually also get negative buoyancy. All right, so they breathe out, they go right down to the bottom, and then what you find is they walk along the bottom. They don't actually swim. So, believe it or not, hippos don't don't swim at all. They kind of just walk along. So, sort of almost like a horse underwater, really. That's yup. There's a bit of a snort, and yeah, clearing the nostrils there of all the pond water that we have at this waterhole in front of Chitwa. So obviously now the dry season, and you find that water is scarce, and this is our prominent water source for the area. So very lucky to actually have a big piece of water like this to keep us sustained through the winter. And it's obviously a man-made dam, but in the old days, water was definitely thought to be the way to conserve. So I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but there was a plan in place in the 70s with Water for Wildlife, where they just basically opened up a number of water holes. Yeah, the guy's getting all excited there, hey? Big bull. Yeah, he's busy getting a little bit grumpy. Everyone's getting a little bit too cozy next to him, eh? But yeah, so Water for Wildlife, an interesting one. They opened up all these water holes thinking it would be a great idea to conserve the African bush, but what they found is that it actually ended up changing things dramatically. So the minute you put water down, you get a lot of different activity happening, and especially with your elephant. So with too much water, that lands up changing the landscape to the point where things kind of swing out of balance. So what they ended up doing was closing about 200 of the 400 water holes in Kruger, if not more. And so if you drive around Kruger now, you'll find that you'll have these big empty sort of reservoirs with no water in. And then if you ever see that, you know why. Because they kind of learned that was not the way to conserve. But again, man-made dam here. And so this would have influenced or has influenced the area. But obviously, being in the Sabi Sands, being the biggest piece of water that we have, it's allowed to obviously remain. So this is actually one of the only places you get what like we call a float of hippos. And it's not common anywhere else within the northern Sabi Sands. So it's always a treat to come by and see these guys. As you know, hippo, they need water. Eh? So you find they spend most of their day in the water, as you know. And part of this is very clever. It's very energy efficient. So they actually only use about 1.5% in terms of graze. So when they go out at night to feed, because they're a nocturnal grazer, they'll only eat 1.5% of their body weight in comparison to other mammals of about 5%. So very sort of energy efficient when it comes to being in the water most of the day. Obviously, very sensitive skin, so that helps protect them. If they get caught outside the water, obviously that's no good. They can actually land up burning the skin really badly, and then it starts to blister and crack and all that kind of stuff. And if that's the case, then long-term sun exposure, they can definitely perish from that. So I came across a hippo once upon a time when we had our drought about 3 years back, and let me tell you, definitely not a happy camper. Hippo are notoriously dangerous. The only reason people may not think so is because when they sit in the water, they look quite relaxed. But this particular hippo on that day, it took one look at me outside of the water, and it came straight at me. I had no rifle, I had nothing, but I was close to the game fence of the lodge, so I basically just dove straight underneath it. And without that electrified fence, I think I would have been in hot water. So at the end of the day, they kill the most people in Africa every year. And so you got to respect these creatures, especially if you do get them on foot. It's just they're not part of the big five because they stay in the water most of the day. And obviously the term big five came from when we get in terms of the hunting, 5 most dangerous animals to hunt, and it was obviously in the day. You can't exactly hunt hippo at night. So the baby croc, where do we see a baby croc? Oh, nice, there is a baby croc. Yeah, look at that. Okay, so obviously one of the smaller ones there. It's actually, because there's 2 big ones that live in here, and that one's sort of a sub-adult. It's grown quite nicely. Because your crocs, they get quite large, eh? You get to about 1,000 kilograms for these Nile crocodiles. And I know there's, I think that was the one my buddy caught the other day. Obviously being danger ranger, he went to go and, showcase it to the guests, which obviously is not really the smartest thing to do because they have teeth. But to be fair, the croc was like in a bit of a funny spot, so he actually sort of almost rescued it, which was at least quite thoughtful. But yeah, no, that's definitely a youngster. So, that's still got a lot of growing to do. If it bites you on your finger, it's going to hurt. Mom is lurking here somewhere. So there's 2. There's a big male and a big female. Let's just have a scan. I don't see them sunbathing, but they're here, somewhere here. That is one of the hatchlings, from sort of last year. And eventually it obviously will be of size, and then you don't want to be messing around. Oh, look, there's a nice fish eagle there. Yep. All right, so my butty back home, he's asking me to wave to the camera, so we are now waving. Hello, Lukey, how are you doing? And then we get back to that fish eagle that's up on that dead tree there. Beautiful bird, that, iconic to Africa. So what you find is, in any sort of major advert of Africa, you got the fish eagle. It's the most beautiful call as well. Very similar to that of maybe your bald eagle in the States, but I don't know, I'm sort of biased towards Africa, so I'd say this is a little bit better. Beautiful, nice white chest, and then obviously fish eagle pertain to the fact that they primarily feed on fish. I've been trying forever to try and get an action shot of a fish eagle coming down and taking some of the fish we get in here, but not that easy. You're going to be sitting quite a long time before that can happen. So the one way that I've heard you can do it though is you got to catch the fish, I suppose, and then you put a cork in it and you let it float in the water, and then it's a little bit sort of cheating, I suppose. Then the fish eagle's coming, so you can then get ready with your camera. But I think Rusty's definitely ready for us on the other end of the reserve, so we're gonna make our way towards Rusty and see what he has for us.
Well, there are tiny insects out here, and while we walk along we get distracted from each and every one of them, asking what is it, where's it going, what's it doing. Now this here, you can see it moving around here. It's actually part of the wasp family. It's not part of the ant family. And there's about 3,000 species throughout the world. And this is called a velvet ant. But it's actually a wasp. It's a female wasp. Let me get you, Chelsea, out of there a little bit. Come on. They do sting, and very, very painful sting, which I don't want to make it too aggressive. Now, they do have a hard time when it comes to mating, because the males do have wings, and this poor female doesn't. So when they come down to mating, the male comes along, hovers above, grabs her, flies up into the air, mates with her, and then just drops her. And then the mating is done. And then she goes off and finds a place to lay eggs. Now, I'm not sure about this particular one, but we have a different one that I know quite well that's got spots all over its abdomen. And they parasitize mud wasps, potter wasps, nests. And don't tell me how this was not planned. I just seem to be walking around and I picked up this ball that is a very old ball, but it has these holes coming out of it. It's completely made of mud. And this was a potter wasp nest. Now, it's quite old. All the larvae have gone. They have left the nest. But these ones, these velvet ants, when they track down, obviously through smells and sensors, they track down these nests when they're being built. Now this takes quite a while. This particular potter wasp must have taken a good month, even longer than that, during the rainy season, to build and lay all these eggs in here. Into each of these columns an egg is laid, holes, and an egg is laid, and then they build around it, and they fill it up with a bunch of spiders and caterpillars, depends on which part of the wasp it is, and then they seal it, and obviously the egg is already in there. Then the egg grows, the egg hatches, the larvae grows and eats those larvae. This is actually a coincidence, because yesterday we were talking about the spider hunting wasp that has the same principle. April, you're saying it looks like a mini bowling ball. I suppose if you put your fingers in there and then toss it, yes. So it's the same principle as that spider hunting wasp that has its nest underground. These ones just find a branch, they stick it there, it's normally in a protected area, and then slowly but surely build it up. Now, it's hard, it's literally like concrete, so it is made from mud during the rains. So the insects that they put in here, the caterpillars and spiders, are paralyzed, and then that sustains the larvae with fresh food for a very long time until they are full, and then they pupate into the adult wasp, and then they chew themselves out, break themselves out of here, and then continue on their next cycle. But it is very interesting. It is very odd, so there's nothing live in there, but okay, I completely destroyed it. But I'll show you, there's a lot of bits and pieces of dead bugs in there. Now these are all bits and pieces of wasps that died with inside the nest, because this is very old. There's nothing. What's this blue thing? I wonder what. Oh, see, that's a bit of a food. It's not actually the wasp that does this. It's actually the food that it collected. Here's a beautiful. So this is something that they brought back to the nest to feed on. I wonder if yeah, it's actually bits and pieces of everything. I can't find any spiders or anything, or caterpillar parts, so I think that everything else has been ingested, eaten up. I actually wonder if this potter wasp is actually, because there's another one, so I'm wondering if it's the old species, the actual species that did it. What I know is a potter wasp doesn't look like anything like that. That looks like, I've forgotten the name of this one, but the iridescent green. Do you remember what it's called? I have seen them out during the rains, but I wonder if it's actually the food that they paralyze these ones and bring it back to feed to the larvae. And it's not, yeah, FC is saying it could be a rainbow shield bug, but I don't think so. It's not a shield bug. It looks like that. So yeah, it's quite a complex system, but this is very old. That was an old cocoon that it broke out of. Jewel beetle. I think it might be a jewel beetle. So I think there's another bits and pieces. So this is from the rainy season. So I think this potter wasp was actually collecting these jewel beetles and bringing it back to the nest to feed to the larvae. So that's actually quite interesting. I didn't realize also they collected the jewel beetles as well. Well, that was quite an interesting connection, since I was talking about it as we picked up the potter wasp. I was like, I haven't seen actually a velvet ant in a while, and fair enough, I found one just about 10 minutes later. I don't know where it's gone. So it is quite a complex system, that. So I was going back to that velvet ant will go and lay its egg inside one of these columns before the adult seals it up of the potter wasp, before the potter wasp seals that hole. So this velvet ant quickly sneaks in, lays an egg in there, and they probably have a faster developing larvae as the potter wasp does. So that will probably grow faster than the larvae of the potter wasp and eat that as well. And then they'll eat whatever food's been put in there from the potter wasp, and then break out also at the end of the beginning of the next rains. So it is a harsh environment out there. Even the poor wasps have it quite tough. But yeah, we've been We lost the track of the leopard, but we're doing another loop around to see maybe we can pick it up. We're guessing it's coming down to drink at one of the pans. But while we do that, let's go over to Shala and see how her afternoon is going along.
Well, good luck, Rusty, because, oh, was it Rusty? Pay attention, Trishala. Well, good luck with that, because this morning when we were on bushwalk and I had my guest appearance in the bushes, we had a lot of tracks, a lot of leopard tracks, and they all seemed, and then we heard a leopard sawing, and then Tingana was found way up north, so I was not sure if we were listening or tracking two leopards. I'm not sure. So there's a lot of tracks around that area that Rusty is in. So I hope that he's successful in finding a cat. Now I've been listening to the Game Drive radio as well. It seems that still looking for cats on that front as well. But we remain hopeful. Yes, we do. I am going to now try my luck at the hyena den because, quite frankly, I miss them very, very much. And I just want to see the little ones, remind them who I am, and then I will be very happy. So I'm going to make my way there. You should see them soon. Spat, you'd like to know which animals will only be seen in the dry season? That is a really interesting question. I don't think I've ever even thought of that. We know so many things that will only be seen in the wet season. Insects start emerging and all that sort of thing. But in the dry season, let's have a think about that. In fact, if you guys know, you think of something that we would only see in the dry season, use that hashtag Safari Live and let me know while I think in the meantime. This is me thinking Trishala. James always says that when I have my thinking face on, it's like a sudden mouth slightly open, the look is off into the distance. So I will be thinking about it. Here we have a lonely impala. There we go. Can you see him? Hello, mister. Why don't you have any females? So there's probably a very good reason that he doesn't have any females. I am not sure if he was able to secure himself a little territory yet, or maybe he's just waiting to take over from another male who's out of condition. They'll go through different males so regularly that in the peak of the rut, this territories will only be held for about 8 days, which I think is testament to how competitive they can be amongst themselves. Looks like he's looking around. Any females for me? Any females? No. Spectacular horns. Look at that, kicking up some dust. It's quite beautiful. He looks like he's walking very, very carefully. Trot, 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 trot. Anyway, I'm actually going to be following him across there, so you'll see me on the dam cam. And then I'll be making my way to the den. So, do we think it's time for one more question? Do you think so? I think it could be. What is the largest organism on the planet? Ricky, you say Hosanna for what we could see in the dry season? That would be amazing. I would wish for dry season all the time if we could see Hosanna. That would be amazing. All right, so the question was, what is the largest, in terms of size, organism on Earth? Again, I know how you guys think. You guys are thinking in the perfectly right way, so I have no doubt that you'll be able to get it just by your master deduction. stop here, have a quick look. Let's just have a quick look on my side here. I'm sure you all can see it, but it's a very beautiful scene. Absolutely stunning scene. We've got Impala, Nyala. Very, very pretty. Anyway, in the meantime, let me send you over to Matt with the warthogs while I slowly make my way to find the den.
All right, so welcome back, guys. We've gone a little bit down the road now from Chitra Chitra Dam towards the sort of western side. We're now on the boundary line between Juma and the south of the reserve, and what we have here is a wonderful sounder of warthog. It's another nice collective noun for you, but it's two, so you have two mothers and then all the piglets wrapped up together. Typically your females only have, can have up to 4 youngsters, so they've done pretty well. I can count 6 here, so the leopards have only claimed 2 of them, and as a family, they're quite relaxed for us, which is nice, because warthog can be quite skittish. They tend to sometimes scurry off into the bush and you don't get to see them nicely. So, golfer's nightmare. If you own a golf course, you see how they're on their knees there, busy foraging, and they basically will dig up using their snout. Okay, and we have another vehicle just coming down the road. Just gonna move quickly. Hi, Botti. Obviously, in a bit of a hurry to get somewhere today. Hey, jeepers, this is my kind of traffic I deal with. Well, better than in the corporate city. All right, there we go. That's better. So, like I was saying, you got this wonderful little warthog family here, and you'll notice that the little ones, they've got the fluff on the side of the face, and that's typically to try and convince a predator that they have some sort of weapon. You see, like the mom's giving a bit of a snout there to the little one. So obviously the tusks are used as a primary defense, and with the little one's fluff there, it's sort of almost to imitate. And not to say that actually stops your leopard, because or the lion for that matter, they definitely don't feel threatened by the tusks, but it's nature's way of trying, I suppose. But a nice little group, and you'll notice that the one at the back is on the knees. You'll see there how they get low to the ground. So that's to just try to get close to the ground. It's obviously difficult for them with a short neck. So Siri, my guesstimate here for these piglets would probably be around 3 to 4 months. So they've sort of started their journey out here in the bush, and hopefully that they all of them survive to maturity. And obviously then they'll be nice and big like mom, who's walking off into the sun there. But back onto the point of being a golfer's nightmare before we had that traffic coming through, is that when they get on their knees and dig with that snout, they'll actually uproot the greens, and it becomes problematic. Now you might sort of wonder and say, Matt, but where do you play golf in Africa, in the bush anyway? But you'd be surprised, we do have 1 or 2 golf courses. One known as Skakuza Golf Course. It's a nice 9-hole. And obviously their carts are compulsory because you're playing golf with the big game, eh? So it's not impossible they'll actually land up with that actually happened. There was a lion kill that happened on the fairway, so you can imagine trying to, bit of a hazard there if you're teeing off. Keeps it quite exciting. So if you are interested in playing some golf with a bit of excitement, you got to make your way out to the African bush here, eh? I have played that course. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Still on the knees, just trying to get whatever they can, foraging, like I say, with that short neck. And obviously being a hog, it's, I suppose if you were to eat any of the wild game, your pig is definitely not half bad, but it just depends on your sort of preference as far as how far you want to take it in terms of your dinner menu. But I have tried warthog, and I quite enjoy it. So, but like I say, it just depends on your preference. And they look cheeky here with that nice ridge of hair on the back as they walk off. Quite hairy as well. You would be surprised how hairy that mammal can be. Something also like elephant, if you looked at them, they don't look overly hairy, but when you get close, they've got that nice thick bit of hair there that is actually very, very coarse, and you can end up making bracelets and things like that from the hair. So, the animals out here are quite rugged. Typically like your lions and your leopards as well. You would think that they're nice and cute and cuddly and you want to pat them, but they actually have a very coarse coat, and that's obviously because the bush is not cute and cuddly. It's quite a hardcore place to actually grow up in, so you got to be sort of survival of the fittest, no doubt. And typically speaking, these guys, if they run off, you'll notice how the tail goes up, but they are sort of just relaxing for us here. So it's a nice little joke about that to say, well, warthog's skin is so tight that when they run through the bush and the grass tickles the eyes, they close the eyelids, and then that will pull up the tail, all right? But obviously that's not the case because, that's just sort of what we call a follow me signal. If they run off into the bush, you'll see that searching for signal tail. That's sort of involuntary. They can't really help that. But leave them to sort of carry on there. Let's see what else we can find on the boundary here. So we've only dropped 1 degree. It's 28 degrees instead of 29 now. It's nice and warm on the skin. All right, Ivy, so warthogs, as far as traveling goes, they're not overly adventurous. I couldn't give you an accurate answer in terms of mileage. I'd actually be guessing. So at a good guess, I'd probably say in a 24-hour period, they might move 1 click, maybe 2 clicks. But they don't really travel that far. You're not going to get your warthog migrating along towards any particular space like you do with your elephant. So elephant, for example, in 24 hours can move about 80 kilometers. So quite a bit of a difference there. But then your warthog doesn't need to really move anywhere. And mom with those babies, she's going to want to sort of not take a risk and take them on a journey, So, yeah, they tend to sort of just take it easy, relatively small sort of home range. They don't really have a territory, so they're not actively defending, kind of just taking it as it comes, like you saw there, enjoying a nice bit of grazing. But yeah, wonderful day out in the bush here, nice clear skies, twilight sun. And yeah, so wonderful day. We're going to make our way back to Charlotte for that quiz that she has lined up for us.
Yes, well, I truly and honestly believe that you will all get this answer for my quiz. I do, because I think you guys are pretty clued up, I must admit. So, what do we think? Now, I heard that many of you are guessing fungus. Go, Judy H. and Nick. You say fungus, you are absolutely 100% correct. In fact, it's a specific type of fungus called a honey fungus. And I think the largest specimen, and it's the same deal as it was with Pando, is that you have the underground network, the mycelia of the mushroom or fungus that is underneath the ground. That collectively stretched 5.5 kilometers wide, which I think was like 3.4 miles or something like that, and that was in Oregon in the USA. So there we go, honey fungus. That is huge. That is massive. Genetically identical, which is of course why I can say that it's that organism that is the largest. Well done, everybody. You guys really impressed me. And I was so excited when I learned it, and then I think, oh, everyone else knew it. But very, very cool. Now, also, something quite disturbing. It's not exactly a quiz, but I just thought that this was super, super interesting, and I happened to read it today, so why not share it with you? But you know the frog, the platana, common one that we see here. I remember James had it once on bushwalk. It's quite a primitive looking frog, and it's really, really abundant, or also known as the African clawed frog. That frog was the first mainstream pregnancy test. You heard me correctly. So what would happen is the urine of a pregnant woman, obviously this is now a controlled environment to actually establish that this can be used as a pregnancy test. The urine of the pregnant woman would be injected into the frog, which would, within a few hours, begin to lay eggs. If the woman was not pregnant, it wouldn't lay eggs. And that's obviously because of high concentrations of certain hormones in the urine of a pregnant woman. But that was the first mainstream pregnancy test. How weird is that? I can't wait to find a platana to tell you that. I'm sorry. That was just, I had to share that. Very, very cool and weird, but they're also exceptionally abundant. Very, very, very numerous. It's hard to say something this is the most numerous reptile, the most numerous mammal, or anything like that, because it's difficult to say that. We don't know all of these things, but people do think that the platana, or African clawed frog, is one of the most abundant reptiles. Amphibians on Earth. So, perhaps. And that would be useful if we could use them for pregnancy tests. Especially if they're abundant. But of course they don't get used anymore, just so we're clear. This no longer is a practice. Unless, of course, you feel like doing it. I don't think you should. So I am close by to the dens. So I'm going to be turning in very soon. In the meantime, let me send you over to Rustles on Bushwalk.
Well, we seem to be doing mostly insects on this walk because our leopards are avoiding us like a plague. They're talking about plagues. This is not one, but this is part of the dung beetle family. Now, this is the dead one. They die at the end of summer. Their whole cycle is finished, and what I'm standing in and digging around in is actually a mound of rhino midden, and this is years and years and years of dung built up, and these dung beetles love it, and it's become a home to them. So this is what it starts off as. Then obviously they mate, lay eggs into the dung, and then they turn into these beautiful worms or grubs or larvae, whatever we want to call it. And they are fascinating, and they seem to be defecating on me and excreting horrible substances. It is not pleasurable at all. Actually, it's just dribbling through my fingers. But they come in all different shapes and sizes. These ones, I believe, belong to this beetle. But then we've got about a couple of almost like 80, 90, 100 different species of dung beetle just in this reserve alone. And this is just one of the species. Now these could be larvae at least of 3 or 4 different larvae, but I'm sure one of them definitely will grow into that eventually by the time summer starts. Let's say November, December, when the first rains hit, these larvae would have turned into that beetle. That one's very much dead. I'm just going to drop that for a second. But these ones are food to many, many animals out here. And I've seen ones that are almost that big, and they turn into those very big dung beetles. Sadly, there's a lot of beetles that have larvae very similar to this, and they do feed on mostly roots. So you get a lot of lawns and gardens that sadly a lot of people put poison down because these grubs end up eating the root system of a lot of plants. Even if you go look at tobacco farmers and crop growers, wheat growers, corn. So these larvae get into one of the root systems, then they end up eating on that. But these particular ones are part of the dung beetle family, which eat dung. And I just love them. They're fascinating. And I would love to get like one of these glass vases and fill it up with the dung of elephant or rhino, and then just put a bunch of these in there and watch them throughout the next couple of months grow into or pupate into the dung beetle. More. Okay, they have got quite hectic pincers on them. You're saying they look like snacks from Timon and Pumbaa from The Lion King. Yes, I think this is where they get the ideas from, when you lift up a log and these things are underneath them. They look very similar to a lot of larvae that you find in tree stumps. And when was it? On Drive the other day, I found a longhorn beetle. They lay their eggs in marulas, old marula trees, and their larvae looks very similar to that, but they bore through wood. These ones bore through the dung heaps, and they are all different sizes. Yeah, they are designed for digging. As you can see here, I'm just going to hold this one up front. They are quite, it's a nice picture in the sun. You can see those massive mandibles they have, which help to break up the dung. Oh wow, Chris, you're saying if you're starving you will eat these if you get caught out in the wild, like lost in the wild. I have never been in any such case of being lost in the wild, and if I do go out for a trail or go camping in the bush, I always seem to take enough food, and I can last a few days without eating. By then, nowadays, depends where you are, you'll find human habitation pretty much anywhere, sadly. But yes, I suppose if you are very hungry enough, we do have a candidate who's holding the camera, I'm sure, he's been all over most of Africa, and I think he would love to take a bite. Andre? Come on, he just wants to film it. He just doesn't want to eat it. Oh, he's a veggie. I forgot. He's a vegetarian. Sorry. But this is all natural. I suppose if he is hungry enough, he will tuck into them. But I'm going to release them back into where they came from, back into the rhino midden. They can continue their cycle. Oh, this is absolutely not great. But while we move on, let's go over to Trishala and see what she's getting up to this evening.
Now, look what I have found, and I could not be happier, because I have missed them so much. So you've got June and her two here, from what it appears. Yep. Hello, girl. It's nice to see you too. Thank you for the warm welcome. An enthusiastic welcome. Oh, look at that. Oh, how sweet. Now see how nice and shaggy they're getting. Which I think is lovely. And they get like that at this... Excuse my sniffles, because I have been quite hay fevery the last few days. But these ones now, June was seen lactating in Jan, so they were born around that time, we'd say. So, oh, it is super cute. It is absolutely super cute. Look at that. And it gives you a really good idea on how exactly the breastfeeding works, or the whole mechanism. Because it's not as if the cub is truly, well, it's a combination of sucking and position, because he'll actually press upon the nipple and squirt the milk out. And then you can see exactly that's what's happening here. Ah, look at those teeth. Ooh, it might be a little bit painful for June. Oh, don't fight for the same nipple. You have two. So these guys are about 5 months old, I would say. So like I said, June was seen lactating in Jan, so any time around that time would have been... Oh, that's what happens when you fight for the same nipple, guys. Absolutely unperturbed June is. So they're nice and fluffy now, which is really, really cute. And you'll notice when we see, and hopefully we will, see pretties too, or plonk, and you'll notice that they're slightly less shaggy now, and they kind of look a bit awkward. Hey. That was too cute. Caroline, you'd like to know if Mum would bring back meat for the young to eat? she will definitely do that. Now, we read a lot that hyenas won't bring food to the den, things like that, but we've seen it often. And I've seen really, I remember it was Plonk was the first one I saw, and he was very young, but he would still be chewing on any bits of leftover carcass or whatever that Koki had brought to the den. So though it says that in many books that these cubs will only start eating meat a little later on, I mean, I've seen them chomping down. Whether they can actually swallow and digest it just yet when they're a couple months older, I don't know, but they definitely give it a go. No doubt about it. They get a really nice shot of the paw. Aw, so cute. I miss them so much. Now look at those two little spots on this on the tail there. It's beautiful. Two spots in a line and a little bit of a dip. Absolutely stunning. Now, this is a really nice time of day to just be relaxing. It's close to 5 o'clock and the sun is really soft. The temperature is really nice. So for these cubs, it's probably the perfect time to just settle down with mum. You're not getting too hot or too cold, and you can have a nice meal. I love the caring paw over the baby. As I say that, she takes it off. Oh, June. Now, hyenas will suckle their young for quite a long time, sometimes even as much as a year or even beyond that sometimes. Usually, weaning is completed around 16 months, if I'm not mistaken. Hello? Oh, hello. And the mere fact that these hyena mums need to produce this milk for a long time is one of the sort of theories as to why they had developed the pseudopenis, because in the competition between themselves to be able to be first at a carcass had created this influx of testosterone, and that's what produced the pseudopenis as a result. But it's the competition to be able to actually be at the carcass and get as much as they can out of it to be able to produce that nutrient-rich milk for a long time is one of the theories as to the mechanism of how they got that pseudopenis. Interesting. Well, I'm going to stick around here and see who else comes to the party. In the meantime, let me send you over to Matt and see what something special he has for you, if anything at all.
Alright, so we're now in the northern sector of Djuma, and the weather's cooled down quite nicely. You can see the sun starting to set on the horizon there, and this is sort of my favorite time of the day as you sort of get towards twilight. You know, this is what we call the golden hour. So if you're a keen photographer, this is the time to be getting the camera out. And nothing better if you can try find a leopard or a lion, walking head on towards you, you can crack those shots off, eh? So at the end of the day, we want to try to get that right. So we're going to drive on our northern boundary now and see what we can pick up on. The avoca males have been hanging around the area, so we'll see. Maybe we get lucky. Sure. Yeah. So James, how you doing? I got lots, eh? Jeepers, eh? Now you're going to make me think. I've been lucky enough to have been spoilt with sightings out in the bush, but there's one in particular that I suppose stands out. So we were in a sighting with 5 leopards. Okay, 5 leopards in one sighting. And what happened was we had a cub and a mother on a kill up in a big marula, and then as we were sort of getting ready to take pictures of her, the big male came in. And he just went straight up and said, right, the kill is for him. So he took the kill away. The youngster went right to the top and then the female jumped down, so that's 3. And then a secondary neighboring female, as far as territory goes, came wandering by to kind of see what the ruckus was about. And, so we had them in sort of the backdrop, and then 2 in the tree and 1 just under the trunk. So that was 5. And we call that a leap of leopards. So that was quite a special one. I've never seen 5 again in one sighting. And that was at a reserve south of us, south of Djuma. So, but yeah, I think that one, just from a numbers point of view, quite intense. I've also seen leopards fighting. That's something. Never forget the one. We followed him through the bush, and this was again south of this reserve. We lost him. We called him the Kashan male, and then we were sort of trying to find him again with a spotlight, and then we found another leopard, and I went, oh wow, okay, I thought it was the same one, and then I realized it's a separate leopard, and he was on a little bushbuck kill. And then we were like, okay, but then where's the other guy? And we turned the spotlight to the right, and I could just see him crouched down, just peering through the grass, ready to like pounce. So you could cut the tension with a knife, eh? And then eventually he did jump, and you must know the reaction of a leopard is insane. That male went from feeding to flipping onto his back to engage this other male that jumped on top of him. So it was the Kashan male and another chap we call Mashlabeni, and they clashed. And the irony of that was the younger leopard sent the older boy packing, and then he chased him for about, I think it was about 2-3 miles, and we followed through the bush. It was spectacular. So that was another one that was, good interaction as far as your leopards are concerned. And we're just gonna getting a bit bumpy here. Just gonna back it up so we can take a left turn. And there we go. So yeah, that's why I say leopards for me are, the agility of a leopard, absolutely power. All right, so we're gonna make our way back to our Roscoe, see what he's got for us there.
Well, we found some evidence of a kill. Now, we know what it is, but we don't know what killed it. It's what we call a leveret, a baby hare. Now, they do leave their nest very young age, and it is very, very fresh because it's very red underneath here, very raw, and it's still very flimsy. It hasn't gone into, what's the word I'm looking for when it hasn't gone into rigor mortis. Thank you. So we don't know what killed it. We think it's mongooses, because for something to be left like that, if it's jackal, that would have been a snack. If it's anything else, the civet, genet, it would have been finished off very quickly. We think about it being a dwarf mongoose, because that's the closest thing we could find close to where this rabbit is. This hare, sorry, I have to use my terminology quite correct. It is a scrub hare, and it's a baby scrub hare. And we don't know, it's very hard to find the tracks. So we've got an Impala over here, but we think it's a dwarf mongoose. And it's actually very special. All these baby hares have got this white spot on the forehead, and I still don't understand why they have it, what the purpose is behind it. But it is always quite special to find one alive and hopping about, because when you do end up walking, you get too close to it, they just like go into a ball and they freeze, and you can get like a good meter and even closer than that, and they just pretend that you can't see them. They think that we can't see them. So it's quite an interesting thing to find. We need our forensic kit out here and get NCIS out here and find out who and what killed it. But I think by the time the sunrise happens tomorrow morning, that is definitely going to be eaten by something. If our hyena hasn't sniffed it out, it'll be something else here. We keep mistaking these. The impalas are rutting in all different directions from us, and we're just trying to figure out what's the difference between that and the snorting of alarm calls. But I can't hear anything else. So yeah, the poor little guy, or girl. Okay. So, the poor little guy's got to go. So, while we keep looking around, we are going to slowly head back and go into the tent, because it is getting to that time of the day where we're going to lose light. So it's going to be quite interesting. What's that? So, while we keep going, we're going to link over to Tishala with our hyenas.
Now, I really hope that these guys don't come across that scrub here, because I can only imagine the fun that will ensue when there's something for them to toss around and play with, and then, of course, eat. Yes, you too. Talking about you too. They've been very well behaved today. They haven't come to the car to just smell my feet or to bite my shoes like Goli had. So they're being very, very good. Mum's giving them a nice lick too. Get them nice and clean. Yes. It's so awesome to see in the animal kingdom. Oh, are you looking at me now? Oh, that was just too cute. Yes, you are. Oh, man. Oh, I love them. Like I was saying, it's so awesome to see that in the animal kingdom, it's just like any other sibling relationship. Your siblings are your siblings, and if you want to irritate them, you are allowed to. Of course, you will incur the wrath of their irritation, but it's part of the whole growing up process. I love it. It's so sweet to see. Nancy, you'd like to know how old these cubs are? Well, June was seen lactating in January of 2019, which was this year. But I think the cubs were only seen in Feb. But I'm not 100% sure. So we're going to say about 5 months. It's always difficult to pinpoint an exact date because, of course, we may not see them until they actually come out of the den site or until we find them. And that'll be the date that we use, you know. So from my understanding, June looked very big and heavy, and milk ducts were very, very visible, and that was in January, so I would say 5 months. Almost 6. Oh, just too cute. I think I could sit with them all day. They're so entertaining, and the more you sit with them, the more you learn. It's not as if you can get all these things from books. Pink Ellie, you say June is a super mum? Yeah, she is a great mum. She's been very good. She's taken care of them really well. She gives them licks and lots of affection. She is an awesome animal mummy. Too sweet. And I think I've said this to you before when it comes to, speaking of, being a good mum. Hyenas have, or spotted hyenas particularly, have often been compared, or their intelligence compared to monkeys, old world monkeys. Oh. And there's a hypothesis called the social brain hypothesis, which states that the development of the brain and intelligence, which is not just the development of the brain, but intelligence encompasses a whole lot of other things about working out problems and things like that, actually arose because of the need, or rather, in order to survive in a social environment where there's complex social interactions, the brain had to develop this intelligence in order to deal with it. And when you think about how socially complex hyenas are, why shouldn't they be as intelligent as other animals or other primates that have a similar sort of structure and obviously an intelligence that comes from it, at least according to the hypothesis. They are very, 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 very clever. And I did read a statement once, but I couldn't find exactly what the author was speaking about. But apparently in some tasks, hyenas can perform better than humans can. Now, I don't know if I believe that, because I didn't actually read anything else beyond that statement, and I did try and look for something. And this whole social interaction, the caring, the mothering, also comes from this intelligence. And lots of licking going on. Licking, of course, you'd see lots and lots and lots of animals do it. It's just a way that they can bond socially. And apparently the stimulation of the follicles as they lick each other in the fur, apparently the stimulation of that will actually produce some sort of happy chemical. I'm not sure if it was, I think it was serotonin or oxytocin, one of those happy, bonding, loving family hormones gets produced when they sort of groom each other and are constantly touching each other, which is very, very cool. Anyway, June has closed her eyes and suckling is complete, but I will stick around a little longer. In the meantime, let me send you over to Matt, who's still driving about.
Right, so we're still on the northern boundary, heading to the east. And as you can sort of see in front of me here, you've got this beautiful golden sunlight that's starting to fall on this nice dry grass. So, you know, this time of the afternoon, you got that 1 hour window, actually less, probably 40 minutes. And then obviously you get your shadows. You can see already as we go down the crest here, it's starting to sort of fade off. You know, maybe swing a right here quickly. See what we can have a look at down here. We're going to head sort of towards the south. So obviously north being behind us. And you notice as I'm driving, we're going over these like big humps in that. And what we call a bolster. So we to sort of help with the road erosion. You see, yeah, it didn't work so nicely. It's a little bit eroded, but not bad. Lady Starfire, you know, I wish I could say yes, because I've been in the bush almost 4 years now, and I've never seen a pangolin. The other day, I was waiting for guests to arrive at the lodge, and they called it in on the radio, and they said, "We've got a pangolin," and I'm like sitting at the front desk going like, "Why are my guests late? Of all days, why today?" So that was probably the closest that I had a shot at sort of getting to seeing a pangolin, but maybe today, you know, maybe we're driving along, we'll catch him and then, or her, and that'll be great. It'll be a highlight for me, So, yeah, you know, obviously one of those elusive critters. I know that if you go up into the Kalahari, there's, you know, dime a dozen there. So, you know, you got to make your way to sort of the northwest of the country to go and find pangolin, which I still need to do. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely something, especially in the Sabi Sands, not very common, let's say. That and aardvark, never seen an aardvark, and if you know what that is, it's like sort of like an anteater looking creature. Just going past, there's a nice, just a bit of a bunch of algae. Got a blacksmith lapwing there. Oh, some hippos, yeah, taking it easy. There we go. Shame, that's not a lot of water for these hippo, But nonetheless, it's definitely going to do the job. Actually, so what you got now is two bull hippos together. Quite unusual. You usually only see sort of one by himself. Yeah, so usually by themselves, but you know, obviously in this particular case, we're going to have the two together, two bulls sitting in the pond. I think Ross has got something for us over on the bushwalk, so we're going to pan over to him real quick and leave these two hippo to relax here.
We're just came into an open area here and we just startled a herd of kudu. But they've got this golden light from the setting sun over them, and there's nothing more beautiful. I think they are one of the most prettiest antelopes we have in Africa. There's a couple of young bulls with them, so it's actually quite nice to see. But these young bulls are about 2 years. The younger one, there's a few older ones, but no one's actually fully grown yet. You can tell by the curve of the horns. By the time they get to about 2.5 twists, they reach maturity. But it just looks like there's only one that's almost 3 years old. The rest are about 1 year to maybe 2 years old. And they're hanging out with a whole bunch of females. And we bumped into 2 kudus the other day, 2 males that were fighting over a herd. I'm just wondering to see if there is any adult males following them. But they are very skittish. I think it's from us approaching. At this time of the evening, they become quite skittish because it is going into that dark, into the night time, and that's when when the predators start coming out or start hunting them, especially the lions. Now we do know that leopards, especially younger kudus, the calves, will be susceptible. They will be taken out by the leopards. But the older females, they are a bit big, a bit bulky, and so are the males with the horns. But the younger ones will be, they've all run off. Well, it was nice to have them for the few minutes we did. And I was hoping for them to stay on the ridge there. It was beautiful. Robert, you're asking if it's dangerous to walk around in the bush. Yes and no. If you walk around and respect the bush and you see what you're looking at and know what you're looking for, and if you find fresh tracks of lion, you be very careful where you go. Sometimes we do want to find the lions, so we just follow the tracks very carefully, see how many there are. You can tell by the tracks. Sometimes you just accidentally bump into them. So you have to be more aware and respect the bush, and then it can actually be absolutely fine. If you do feel like there's a situation that's getting too tense or something might happen, you just back off slowly and go to a safe place. We don't just go walking into a herd of elephants, because that's going to cause a problem. We'll view them from a safe distance, try not to get too close, and see where the wind is blowing so they don't get our sense of smell, don't get our scent. So there's a number of different ways and means of being able to walk in the bush without causing any problem or putting yourself in harm's way, as well as the animals. Most of the time we try and walk and not to disturb any of the wildlife, and sometimes it's nice to actually go in and go out without even the animals knowing you're there. But with those kudu, with that many eyes and ears, we had no chance. I think they heard us coming from miles away. But that's with that. But one individual leopard that's sleeping can hear us creeping up when we know where it is, and will often see us way before we see it. Yeah, okay, so we're going to be disappearing into the tent shortly to finish the segment. But while we do that, let's go over to Trishala and her hyenas.
Well, I love the tent. There's always so much to learn when we spend time in the tent. And I hope that Rusty will enjoy himself too. It'll be his first time in the tent, actually. Good luck, Rusty. I'm sure it will be awesome. As you can see, June has done sweet nothing since the last time you saw her. But I suppose after feeding these two naughty ones, it's not a surprise that she needs a rest. I feel she's like every mum. Though her eyes are closed, she can still see almost. And these two, they're behind this bush. I don't know if you'll... So all you can see is the moving bush, but it's the two of them having a bit of a tug of war. All you see is this moving ghost bush. But no, it's these two scamps. Now, I would like to move, but the problem is every single time I turn the car on, they run straight into the den. So we're just going to have to put up with it for a little while so I don't scare them. I don't like when they get all scared and panicky and run into the den. But of course it's natural, and they know. Kerpel, you'd like to know if hyenas get tired very quickly? That is a very interesting question, because being tired has a lot to do with oxygen. How much oxygen are you taking in order to facilitate your cell's activity? And oxygen is provided by the pumping of blood, and therefore the muscle that's involved is the heart. In humans, I think our heart takes up about 0.3% of our body weight. And lions, I think females are slightly higher than the males. We're looking at about 0.4-ish, around there, 0.45% of their body weight. Hyenas, you're looking at 1% of their body weight. That is a lot. That is a big heart for a hyena. So that means that it can endure a lot more activity. So if we're going to talk about how tired they would be compared to the animals in the other animals in the animal kingdom, I would say that hyenas have a pretty high endurance. They're going to be, imagine that 1%, so you're looking at 0.3% more than we have the ability to pump. So I think that a hyena, it would take a lot for it to get tired. A lot. And especially with the gait that they have, they have the slanting sort of body that allows them to have the specialized gait that looks quite awkward, but in fact is very energy efficient. It's sort of, if you can imagine, I don't know if we all do this, but sometimes you'll skip around, and that momentum of the skip is actually sort of conserving your energy because you're not putting too much into it. It's just the bounce and the momentum that's keeping that skip going. In a similar way, that gait is now assisting them to keep that momentum going so they're not expending too much energy. So you're looking at that in combination with the large heart producing all that blood, or pumping all that blood around the body. I'd say they are high endurance trained runners. I thought that was fascinating. When I read that their hearts were 1% of their body, I mean, it's one thing to just know that, but what does it mean in relation to us? Curious one. I love that question. Will hyenas recognize themselves in the mirror? Well, that's a very interesting thing, and we were actually chatting about it earlier today, and recognition in a mirror. And now you'll know that most animals actually are not able to recognize themselves in a mirror, because recognition has a lot to do with sort of intelligence in a way. I don't know the exact, what chemical is involved in what when it comes to that, but there are a few animals that can recognize themselves in the mirror, and one of those are elephants, apparently. But I mean, how do you test that sort of thing? So from what I've read, elephants can. I would love to take a mirror and put it in front of a hyena, just so I could actually get out and play with a hyena, firstly, but then also to see if they could recognize themselves. But how do you know that it's going to recognize itself? How do you not know it's seeing a hyena in the reflection and not worrying about it, So I really have no idea whether they'd know it's them or that they see themselves in the mirror. But considering the discussion we had about intelligence and sort of the emotional intelligence that goes on as well, and the fact that we know that elephants also are really emotionally intelligent, perhaps they could see themselves in the mirror and recognize that this is me. Perhaps it would take a few attempts in the mirror because they wouldn't actually know it's them they're looking at because they've never seen themselves before. Anyway, really, really interesting, curious one. Very interesting. Anyway, these two are still on the move and being very, very naughty, so I will stick around. In the meantime, let me send you over to Matt and see what he's got.
So yeah, we're looking at a fantastic sunset. And today is Thursday, so another Thursday out here in the bush. I had to look at my watch to get the right day, because obviously Monday to Sunday it's all the same thing. You don't get a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday and then a weekend. So this could be Monday, and what a great way to spend your Monday. And as it sort of sets now over the horizon, it's obviously just going to get better and better. So it's one of these really neat things about being out in the African bush, is that the sunsets are always fantastic, especially on a clear night like tonight. When it comes to winter, you don't get too many clouds, because obviously it doesn't rain in winter. So we are currently in midwinter, and you get this lovely shade of blue into orange, which is absolutely fantastic. And what a great way to end the day. And we're going to have to move into our nocturnal stuff now, shortly after the sun sort of dips its head there. And that's never a bad way to end your day. And at the end of on a Thursday, I think we've done well. Been quite a nice afternoon. A bit of a recap on the hippos, and then the beautiful fish eagle that we saw, and started off with those zebra. Unfortunately, no big game this afternoon, but the gentle game is always fantastic to appreciate. And we never know, as it sort of gets towards the darkness, you're going to get your lions and your leopards getting more active, hyenas as well, so we might land up with a much better chance at catching them on the way home. Obviously under spotlight, and then from there we'll have to see. But nothing better than actually finishing off the day with a good sunset. Sometimes in the bush it gets clouded over, but you don't actually get it. Very, very rare though. So if you're living in the UK and listening from that side of the world, you know what I'm talking about. That low-level cloud and light drizzle. That is something that is a rarity out here. So definitely one of the reasons why a lot of us tend to stay and live out this side of the world. One of the best climates, if I'm honest. Although summer gets a little bit hot, up to 40 degrees Celsius and good humidity, and then obviously you got to hit the antiperspirant to make sure that you're not deodorantless, because that can be a problem. And obviously then bushwalking is tricky. So I prefer to walk this time of year, nice and cool. You don't have to sweat it out. Some guests, they like to go walking in the bush in midsummer, but it's definitely not preferred. All right, and we're going to move off to Shala to just enjoy a bit of the rest of the hyenas.
And I have just turned on the car because I said to you I don't like to scare them very suddenly, and then they were there, so I said, okay, let me take this opportunity to move so we can get a better view of them. And no, as soon as I turned on the car, I didn't even move, I just turned on the car, and they rushed off. But now they're back. Oh, let's listen to them. That one is actually biting on that wood. How cute. Oh man. Sort of hear him chomping down a little bit. Got a piece in the end. No, that wasn't the hyena, that was Seb. Bless you.
Thank you.
All this chewing is of course necessary. The hyena are born with teeth, which is a very, very painful thing, I can imagine, for mummies. Having those teeth on the breast constantly. You can see the canines. Now, those will be replaced around 15 months. Now, it's really interesting when you read these things because that all makes sense. We spoke about hyenas being weaned around that age, and it would make sense that their adult teeth come in at that age because now they're no longer drinking milk. So it's always lovely when you read these things, you're like, oh, that makes very much sense. Yeah. Instead of just thinking about it in your head, okay, hyenas at this time, etc. Oh, too cute. Anyway, we're going to have to go and take care of the kids now. Actually, just speak to them and answer their questions and all of that. So do stick around if you'd like to watch. In the meantime, let us wait for the kids.